me wanna holler, go away. I need more peace and hope and love. Where do I find it in this crazy old world? I need strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Every time I listen, Lauren and David share strategies for living, and it makes me aware. I got strategies for living, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio.
We all need them. Yeah, we need those strategies, don't we? Those strategies for living. So are you ready? Are you ready for your daily dose of radio rehab?
Well, I'm ready. Let's do this as soon as possible. Let's go. Let's get it
you're
done.
in that kind of mood, huh? Hey, folks, welcome. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm Dr. David McMillian, and she is always in a hurry. PLPC psychotherapist Lauren Leon McMillian, ASAP, huh? That's what you want to do.
Yeah,
huh?
let's go. Let's get it
All
done.
right. Well, and so you are making the assumption, and you know what assumptions can do, but you're making the assumption that ASAP means as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And I think we are conditioned there, Lauren. We're conditioned to hear and to be and to live in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
And to whatever is stated, to hear as much stress and urgency as possible. But ASAP, what if we imagined that differently?
Yeah, what if we reframed it?
What if we reframed it? We'll talk a little bit about reframing today. What if ASAP instead was reframed to mean as slow as possible? Or as soft as possible.
As soulful as possible.
Yeah. So what if it became a call? ASAP, what if that became a call for us to live with more intention, with a gentler way about us, and more truthfully, really? So we kind of want to go there today. Yeah. We want to kind of imagine that together today here on Strategies for Living. And
in a world where urgency is, nonstop.
Yeah.
Right? What are we missing in settling down into the silence and remembering what it's like to go at our own true pace?
So we're going to explore slowing down today, not as a weakness, but as wisdom. That's today on Strategies for Living. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us, and we appreciate our sponsors making it possible. The Robinson Film Center, Azalea Cleaners, Pintail Roofing, Learning RX, We Train Your Brain, the Balanced Life Wellness Center, Fertitas Delicatessen, home of the Godfather, Alligator Italian Sausage, and some good muffies too, and SRT Sales Training. ASAP, we're focusing on it today here on Strategies for Living. Be right back.
Tune in daily, find the light. Healthy mind and spirits bright. Strategies for living strong. Feel the vibe, it won't go wrong. Body moves and soul align. Catch the rhythm, feel the time. Radio rehab every day. Chase those clouds of gray away. Your daily dose of radio rehab. Lift you up when skies seem trapped. Mind and body, spirits free. Living life in harmony.
And welcome into Strategies for Living Radio. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. We do definitely live. You can't deny this. We live in a culture of hurry today. Why why have we equated speed with success? And we know that burnout is a fact of life for some people, right?
Right.
And anxiety is certainly a way that a lot of people live. We have these performance-driven identities,
Right.
And so we want to explore that a bit today.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly live in a world that worships busy, right? I'll talk to my grandmother once a week or so, and she often says, "Oh, you're so busy," and she means well, but I can also hear, that underlying society and that culture of, well, you've got to be busy, and so I think, we've got to look to our own what words, what phrases we're using to ourselves, but I also think there's some level of technology that's playing alongside this, right? I mean, I can't help but think, of course, immediately, right, the invention of the clock, right, the way to keep time,
right,
of course, is going to introduce that initial feeling of being tied to the clock, to time.
Where did we learn this? Where did we learn that the equation fast equals better? Let's explore that a bit. Where did that come from?
That's a good question, and I think, again, where I was starting to go, I think a lot of it has to do with technology. I mean, if we look back over time, we came from ancestors who mostly worked the land, right? They worked the field and they worked by nature, right?
Yeah, and I think we had a better hold on things. And I think it began to. Where I began to think it began to shift. Lauren?
Where do you think?
I think it began to shift. If you study history and you go back to the Industrial Revolution,
that's where I was going to pin it to.
And you go back to people like Ford and Rockefeller and again, not to take anything away from them,
right?
Because they were products of their time.
And I don't think that they meant any malice.
No
intention.
No,
they were just working with the times and making things better and more productive from their understanding and viewpoint at the time.
And so the creation of things like the assembly line, and everything is put to the clock. I think over time, we just, again, that equation fast equals better. Over time, it became an unquestioned mantra for us.
Well, and then as technology continued to evolve alongside us, right, it made everything able. I mean, like you're saying, it started with the assembly line. It started with those big industrial revolutions. But then we also came into computing, right, and calculators.
Right.
And now we have this thing called AI, which can spit out things that would take humans
exponentially faster than what we've become accustomed to with the fastest computer. And a lot of us are wringing our hands, and there's not a little bit of consternation and fear about what this is going to bring, what's ahead for us.
And I want to take this a different direction, because I think, yes, on the egoic level, we almost see ourselves as in competition now with this technology. It can, from the idea that it can do things so much faster.
Doesn't have to be, though.
But it doesn't have to be in competition. And in fact, I want it to be a reminder of our humanity. Something that we can do that technology can't is what we're trying to reframe is that ability to slow down.
Right.
The ability to be present. Because that's one thing technology hasn't demonstrated the ability to do yet, is to be present within the body and sensational as we are in form.
Right.
Right.
But we have to maintain that sense of equilibrium, that sense of balance, if you will.
Well, and it starts with this reframing, right? Because, I mean, when we hear that phrase, as soon as possible. I mean, something immediately, almost automatically happens within our bodies, right?
Right.
I mean, our heart rate goes up, our shoulders tighten.
And if that happens over time and we don't, take time outs and we get things like burnout, we get things like we go from stress to something that can be diagnosed, and it's called anxiety. And we have many different forms of it.
Yeah.
And then what do? We go to the doc and say, I'm anxious, and the doc, tries to help us with a prescription pad. And here, take this. And, that's all well and good, but it doesn't get to the root. And that's what we will, that's kind of what I want us to focus on today.
Exploring like where it came from.
Where did it come from? And where in my life do I need to, in my life do I need to alter a bit, be willing to
first
change a bit to come back into equilibrium, to come back into balance?
Yeah. I mean, first you explore where it came from, and then how is it impacting your life?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something that a lot of us may be blind to. I mean, we may feel anxious and stressed and burned out, but if we're not associating it with the belief that we have to do this as soon as possible, or that we need to be constantly busy or working, I mean, we're missing the point. We're just,
I think there's a lot of root. I think there's some causes. I think that over time, a lot of FOMO has developed around this.
Sure.
Fear of missing out. In other words, if I slow down, I'm going to miss out. I'm going to lose. And that's kind of installed in us. And it counterintuitively, sometimes and Einstein said, some of his greatest ideas came out of boredom and daydreaming.
Silence.
Yeah. And so, my goodness, I mean, wouldn't all of us love to be able to have Einstein's mind and wisdom? But it's counterintuitive. We have to be willing to do what Einstein did. He didn't work himself into urgency. He was able to let his mind just kind of explore.
Well, and to really what you're talking about there is tapping into the present moment.
Yeah.
Which I think so much of this rush and this busyness, it gets us out of the present moment. We escape, we run from it, not understanding the divinity that waits for us. I mean, literally the presence that awaits us in the present moment.
We're going to miss the present if we miss the present.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so how many times, I mean, I've been burned recently, right? In we're just caught up in our mind somewhere and not paying attention to what we're doing, right?
Yeah. It happens. Yeah. And you've got a thumb to prove it.
I got a pretty sore thumb to prove that it's really important.
Thank goodness it really wasn't more than a nick, but you were working in the kitchen and you kind of were, I had gone out to get something, and in fact, I'd gone to get some meatballs. And you said, well, that sounds good, but you don't eat meat. So you were making your own, with some tofu and that kind of thing, and I'm sure they were going to be tasty, but you kind of got ahead of yourself. And
I did.
Next thing I know, I'm hey,
I need some butterfly.
After you pick up those meatballs, would you get me some butterfly bandages? Huh?
I wasn't really paying attention.
Maybe a gentle reminder from the universe to, hey, slow down just a little bit.
And you're going to be
what's your hurry?
You're going to be taken care of. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because I remember in that moment, I was just so hungry. Right. And so I was just trying to get it done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Right. And
but when you do that, you miss out, you miss out on the importance, the intentionality of the preparation.
Right. Of making the food, which is something that I have consciously reprogrammed within myself. I've really worked hard on that. And so it's interesting that the moment that I slipped out of that, the universe said, "Hey, no, we're not doing that anymore."
One of the things that shows up on my feed is a former colleague of Julia Child's, Jacques Pepin.
Yes,
and
happy cooking.
he posts videos through his foundation, and preparing good food at home. And I loved, and none of his videos are long, but they're all very informative. And what I love is his intentionality, the preparing of the food with healthy intention and love.
Right.
And that comes through loud and clear. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of my favorite ways, of reconnecting with my body and spirit is, man, if you had told me I would enjoy cooking just 5 years ago, I would have laughed.
You
at
would have laughed.
Yeah.
But before we go to break here, one of the things that maybe to consider during break, and we'll come back and talk about it a little bit and more. But how do we begin to untangle and unravel our sense of worth, our sense of who we are from productivity? How do we untangle that? How do we get
who
untangled?
Am I? Yeah, who am I beyond the rush?
Because I'm not what I do.
Yes. We're not human doings.
We're not human doings. We're human beings. We're so much more than the things that we do.
Yes.
We're talking about slowing down a bit today. We're talking about countering the culture of hurry and looking at ASAP in a little different way today on Strategies for Living. We'll be back.
Facing the same old problems day to day makes you wanna holler, get away. Looking for the road that'll get me there, looking for hope and peace to spare. Looking for strategies. Strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab strategies.
And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living Radio. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. ASAP. When I say it, you mean as soon as possible? Well, yeah, that's what it means. But what if it meant as slow as possible? What if it meant as soft as possible? What if it meant as soulful as possible? So, we're talking about that. As simple as possible. Yeah, we can go on and on and on with this. But at the end of last segment, we posed the question to think about during the break. How do we begin to untangle our worth, our value, our worth and value as human beings from our productivity, what we do? Right. Yeah.
Well, and this is, pretty personal for me because I grew up in that very much so. With the identity that I needed to hurry or to prove or to perform, right? I mean, I think we all get it in some form.
Yeah.
At least through school, right? People will praise you for, you're finished so quickly. You did that so efficiently, right?
Right.
And you might even compete to be the first one done, right? I mean, that's part of the culture. And then, on top of that, I got a lot of messaging around, we gotta go. We gotta be here on time. And
go. Do.
You gotta do this. And if you're not doing anything, you're being lazy, right? And if I got told once, I got told 1,000,000 times, you don't understand time. And boy, that's been an unraveling for, we talked the other day about unpacking your backpack, right?
Yeah.
Of beliefs.
Yeah.
And that one's been one.
That was a big one for you.
That's been a big one for me to unpack. And I, and I'm not going to say I'm completely healed. I think, there will probably be little moments here and there where I'm like, That's my little program of Rush just popped up again.
Yeah, and we get that from a lot of different places. I mean, we don't get that from, this is not bash parents, bash the grandparents, bash.
Because
you get it from a lot of different places in society, don't you?
Yeah, and we're rewarded for that acceleration.
Yeah.
Not awareness.
And remember, this gets passed down generation to generation. So the people that raised you got raised by people who installed probably that message also, and then it gets it gets multiplied.
So like I know for me, I came from immigrants, right? And so they so valued hard work, and I am so grateful for that because it's part of the reason I'm here. However, generation to generation, that idea, that belief that we have to work hard to get what we need, right? At some point, it's not as necessary, and it actually became, for me, detrimental and harmful, right? Because I don't need to work as hard. I mean, I certainly have a good work ethic, but
no question,
I also have taken time to reprogram and to get more into balance with my play ethic.
Yeah. So let's play with this a little bit.
Okay.
So the ASAP philosophy, if we were to reframe it, if we were begin to shift it, we've already mentioned it could be reframed to as slow as possible. It could be reframed to as soft as possible, as soulful as possible, as sustainable as possible, as sincere as possible, as steady as possible. And now let's talk about each one of those. We've already begun to talk some, but in terms of our mental health, our mental healthiness, our ability to get out of the way and allow healing to take place, right? So one of the things that we need to understand, just as the body is a self-healing mechanism physically,
yes,
it's also a self-healing mechanism mentally and emotionally.
Right.
However, I think any doctor, any good physician will tell you that one of their jobs is to remove the blocks to healing.
Right.
If we're really wise, we've also got to focus on and ask ourselves, what are the blocks that I have in place in my mind that keeps me from healing and
I think
creating this as slow as possible, as soft as possible, as soulful as possible.
I think one of the beliefs or ideas that I've run into with a lot of my clients is the fear of what we will have to face when we slow down, right?
Yeah.
That fear of not knowing what to do with yourself in the stillness, in the slowness, because as long as I'm producing, I have I might have a checklist or a set of rules to follow where I know exactly what I'm going to do and I'm doing it in the order. And so I get this rapid fire burst of dopamine from completing these tasks within these parameters I've set forth for myself, right?
Right.
However, when we settle into our true nature of being, suddenly I think as a society, we get lost because we don't even know who we are. And this connects back to your question kind of at the beginning of the segment, right? Being able to disentangle our identity from this sense of urgency or productivity.
Productivity, what you produce. Yeah. Because who are we really? We're beautiful, wonderful creations of divine creations of God.
Energy beings, yeah.
And however you choose to perceive God, we are created in that image and likeness. And that means that we also are creators.
Mhm.
And so, how can we embrace that without fooling ourselves into believing that creation is just constant motion and activity, constant doing?
You know what? Something that I've realized over just what I've experienced is that actually a lot of times more creation happens in the stillness when you look like you're not doing anything. More creation happens in those moments than in the moments when you are actively putting, ideas into action or the physical form. I mean, so much, again, that kind of goes back to your idea of Einstein or Benjamin Franklin allowing themselves to sit in the stillness and even almost teeter off into sleep.
Right.
When they would have their greatest ideas.
Right.
I think we would find that we function actually more efficiently in the moments when we allow ourselves to rest. But the way we've got ourselves almost addicted, I think we're addicted to our own fight and flight freeze, our own sympathetic nervous system response.
Yeah.
I think we're addicted on some level.
I think you may be right.
And I think that's something we all need to start to just consider and then begin to wrestle with.
Especially to shift to ASAP, meaning as soft as possible, because you can't do life without grief.
Yep.
And you can't do life without conflict.
Right.
So if that's a gift, if grief and conflict are givens in life, and they are, then ASAP, as soon as possible, actually is an impediment
Big time
to being able to move through grief,
right,
or to resolve conflict. And I think that we see that today.
Because I would argue with you, trying to rush or do things as soon as possible is actually a form of resistance.
Yeah.
And we know what we resist persists.
And
grows
what we resist is really the greatest cause of our suffering.
Right.
When you have a feeling, some feelings we label, I think we mislabel, but we label them as bad, quote unquote, bad feelings.
They're uncomfortable.
Because they're uncomfortable for us.
Label them.
But when we, when we try to hurry ourselves past a feeling, what we're actually doing is creating an impediment to healing that feeling.
Yeah.
The way to heal it is to not resist it, is to let it come, to let it flow.
And let it move through you.
Yeah. And then that's another ASAP, as steady as possible. Because one of the things that is a given in life are the transition periods.
Yes.
We live life long enough. You all of us move through life transitions.
Yes.
So during that period of time, ASAP, we want it to be as steady as possible.
Right. And when you say steady, there are some people who actually hear that and think, well, I'm not going to let myself feel too much one way or the other. And to me, that's not steady at all.
No.
To be steady is like a rock in a river.
Yeah.
And if you imagine the river as the emotions and as life, right? If you're the rock, you sit and you allow that emotion, anything and everything
to flow past.
Yeah, if there's leaves,
to flow through.
If there's a boat in the river, you allow it to come and just rock over you, right? And you continue on, right? And it's not about being unshakable. It's about remembering that even when things get rocky, we have a center to return to. And that's important to cultivate and to remember.
ASAP. We immediately think as soon as possible. But turns out there are some other meanings that would probably be healthy for us to have with ASAP. As soft as possible, as soulful as possible, as steady as possible. As spiritual as possible. Talking about it today here on Strategies for Living. And we'll be right back.
We all have problems every day. We all need help along the way. We need strategies, strategies, strategies for living radio.
And welcome back in. Welcome back into Strategies for Living Radio. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, ASAP. When you hear that, what do you think? Well, as soon as possible, of course. Yeah, we gotta go. We're considering today that maybe there's some other things that we can reframe. That we can, reframing is an interesting technique, and it's a technique that is generally taught early in most counseling graduate programs,
Right.
And it's important. It's important that that we understand that. We've all had the example. Most of us, we've had a picture up on the wall and we pull it down. We're tired of the way it looks. We pull it down. We bring it to the frame shop. There's another, they put a new matting around it. They put a new frame around it that we pick out. We pick it up and we bring it back. And it's the same picture, but man, it looks different.
Right. It's a brand new piece.
It's a brand new piece. Yeah.
And so as, we've worked on reframing ASAP, instead of as a race, let's reframe it as a rhythm, right? As something to soften, to slow, or to be soulful or steady, and we can talk about that all day, but how do we? Yeah.
What are some strategies? What are some strategies, some practical strategies for living a bit slower and a bit stronger? And, how do we put this into practice? Because, again, the world's not going to change.
Right.
The world is going to continue to...
It's going to be shouting, hurry up!
Hurry. Urgency. Okay, so one of the... And we talk about this a lot on strategies.
Yeah.
We talk about boundaries. And so one of the key strategies here is to set boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries are not set from the outside. They're always set internal, right?
It's something that I'm going to do that has nothing to do with anybody else.
Right.
I can do it. It's something that I can control.
So what boundaries can you create in your life? And it could be something very simple, right? Mm-hmm. It could be giving yourself 15 minutes a day to do nothing. I've talked about this before. My father, I was raised up in an A&P grocery store. And I watched my father when I was growing up work very hard. Mm-hmm. But one of the other things that I saw him do every day is he came home for lunch and there would be a meal prepared. Mm-hmm. And so he'd eat a nice lunch. And then he would go and he would lay down. He would go to the bedroom and he would lay down. Mm-hmm. He'd take a nap, only about 15 or 20 minutes. But he did that every day.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, I think he was able to work much longer hours.
Sure.
Because he gave himself a break in the middle of the day. I've tried to mirror that in my life.
Yeah, well, your 20 minutes turns into an hour real quick.
Well, I like to, I like to honor my mother and father, right?
Yes,
I'm big on the fourth commandment. Is that the fourth? Yeah.
But I think we can all learn from this. And I think one of the issues that I hear often, we have trouble winding down and shifting and making that transition.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why so easily people have issues doing that 20-minute nap and it suddenly turns into an hour. For some people, it's because it takes that time to transition.
I hear people right now saying, okay, David, wonderful. Great that you can do that. Great that your father did that. But I don't have the job I'm in or what I've got going.
Right.
I don't have it. Okay. Well, I've given you one B word. Let me give you another B word.
Okay.
Breathing. Okay. So, okay. You may not have that flexibility, but you've got your breath. How can I use my breath to give myself a moment?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can literally practice the pause, right? Between every action and reaction, there's that sliver and you always have your breath to return to.
Yeah.
Right. And so with just intentionally, even if you take 3 deep breaths, it can dramatically change your physiological experience and therefore your psychological experience in any moment.
Yeah, and that doesn't have to take more than somewhere between a minute to a minute and a half, 3 minutes up to 3 minutes if you can, but who can't do that?
Well,
right?
And even if you don't have that, how can you make your day intentionally slow and present? No matter what you're doing, you can choose to be there fully. That's another way to practice this sincerity, this slowness, and this intentionality is by, you could call it a ritual of slowness. It always reminds me of Eckhart Tolle, right? When you make the tea, make the tea. When you do the laundry, do the laundry. And so what's one thing within your day that you can say, hey, I'm really going to, and just start small. Start with, you make your cup of coffee in the morning instead of rushing to just push the buttons and mindlessly stirring. Really, really be there with your coffee, right? And listen to the sounds, smell it, because it's got a nice, strong sensory experience with the smell. And then as you're stirring, stir in some intentions for the day.
You most of the time, we're not hard and fast to this, but most of the time you do the cooking, and so most of the time I do the cleaning.
Yes.
And the house we moved into has a dishwasher, but it's not much of a dishwasher. It doesn't work very well.
Yeah, so
if you want the soap dispensed. So I have to wash the dishes by hand. I've learned to be more intentional because as you dry and put up the dishes, you don't say anything. You just put back, the dishes that where I've missed something. So, you kind of have me trained to be more intentional in my dishwashing.
Yeah, there are lots that I rewash.
So I do it 3 times a day as I'm after breakfast, after lunch, and after dinner. As I'm washing dishes, I have to, I've become more intentional.
I'm glad.
And my goal is fewer rejections. Yeah.
Well, and that's a really good time to really practice that, because again, it's a very sensory experience, right? To be able to really feel the water, the temperature of the water, and to actually feel the dish. That's one of the ways that I like to practice. Is I actually feel around for any leftover residuals on the dish.
If you are a journaler, maybe some questions that you can journal about. Where do I need softness right now?
Yeah.
Just consider that question and journal it. Just write the question down. Where do I need softness right now?
And allow what comes through.
To come through.
Because the whole world right now is in desperate need of softness. And that's something we need to.
Yeah. You might be surprised at the answer that comes. Yeah. We are reconsidering ASAP today here on Strategies for Living. We'll be back. Stay with us. And welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. ASAP. Reframing it,
This is a big one for us.
Yeah.
In today's day and age,
Our healing is not a race. Our well-being is not a race. Our self-worth is not up for negotiation. We're allowed to move at a pace of peace.
At our own pace.
At our own pace,
and our pace is okay. I did that as a New Year resolution for a year, and I continue to remind myself of it. It's to take your time, right? To allow yourself that space, that my pace is enough, that my softness is strength, and slowing down isn't giving up.
Yeah.
It's tuning in. And, I know it can be difficult in a world that's always yelling at us. And I think what we're asking sounds counter culture, and to a degree it is. But that's another thing that I want to reframe, that maybe slowing down or being as slow as possible I don't want it to mean dropping out of the world.
No.
Right? It means
it means being in the world in a different way.
Showing up differently.
So the invitation is, you may have heard us talk about several things. Maybe it's a short pause. Maybe it's a quick nap. Maybe it's a single breath. Maybe it's being kind to yourself. But whatever you pick out, do it as slow as possible, as soft as possible, as soulful as possible. There you go.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living. We appreciate you being with us, and we appreciate our sponsors making it all possible. The Robinson Film Center and Azalea Cleaners and Pintail Roofing and Learning RX. We train your brain. And the Balanced Life Wellness Center. And Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of the Godfather, alligator Italian sausage, and some pretty good muffies, too. And SRT Sales Training. Go see my friend Scott Tarkowski. If today was the last day of your life and you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Lauren Leon McMillian, I'm David McMillian. See you next time right here on Strategies for Living.